The next thing that we want to be qualifying with our customers is their interest. Qualifying a customer's interest isn't just about determining whether they're actually interested or not. The best salespeople and the best influencers in the world, they're the ones who can make things matter the most. So being able to qualify interest with a customer is about helping them show how much this actually matters to their life by uncovering the implications that matter. The other thing that you want to do when you're qualifying interest is really being able to uncover the concerns or issues that they might have, where your frame might be so strong that they're not in a position to speak up and voice them. Now, those can come and get you later in the pitch in the form of objections or issues, but being able to uncover these early really helps you get a leg up of how you close the customer. So being able to qualify interest is a really important part of what makes great sellers great. The first part we're going to cover when it comes to qualifying interest is what I call framing the need. Now, initially, when you have an interaction with a customer, you want to have a no big deal frame for things. Where here, we're going to turn it on its head. We're going to make the need that we're addressing with the client a big deal. We're going to give this need a big deal frame. How do we do that? When you're trying to deal with customers, especially with higher ticket items, things like advertising or technology, things like that, you want to be able to demonstrate why their need is so important. Well, the secret to doing that is what I call digging a little deeper. It seems quite easy. That's because it is. When you're talking about the need with a customer, you want to find the implications of the problem, not just the problem itself. Once you help them find the implications of their problem, they'll realize how important it is for them to make a decision right now based on what we're presenting. So a good example, let's say we need to sell advertising to a customer, right? Well, the first thing that we're going to do in the conversation is address why we're there in the first place. So they say, I'll say something like, all right, so what are your biggest needs at the moment? Plain and simple works a treat. So I'll say, what are your biggest needs? Your needs. Well, they're going to tell me. They're going to say, well, look, we're looking to up our advertising, right? Because look, we need some more people in the door. And so, okay, cool. And here's the secret question. I say, all right, and why do you need more people through the door? Again, digging a little deeper. Well, we need more people in the door because we're not making enough money. Okay. So we're not making enough money. And here's another question. So if we're looking at getting deeper, we're trying to find the implications. You're going to do that by either asking why they need more money or by simply saying, what are the implications of that? And so I'll say something like, okay, so what are the implications of not having enough money through? So, it's actually getting pretty stressful. We're having to lay off staff, which really breaks my heart. And it's really making, I'm not even able to draw a wage. And then I ask my magic question. Okay, well, what are the implications of that? And I say, well, it's actually putting a lot of pressure on my marriage. It's actually, I'm actually even thinking about having to get my kids out of private school and put them into a public school. It doesn't sound very good at all. Helping people, so is our wife and kids, right? Now, their advertising may not be something that's very important to them, but we've now associated fixing their advertising with something that is very important to them, their wife and kids, their family. So we've now associated the issue with advertising with something vastly more important, their husband and wife and kids. So the issue here is not just about I'd like a better advertising service. The issue that we've helped them uncover and the importance that we've been able to frame this in is that your wife and kids need you to act. We've found deeper implications. Likewise, now we can go into the benefits. So I say, all right, well, that definitely sounds like a problem. Well, if we could change that right away, if we could completely fix that, if we could completely fix the fact that you're not getting customers in, if customers aren't coming in the way that you want them to, if we could get customers in for you, what implication would that have? So we're now talking about the solution or the service. Well, what implications would that have? Well, they'll say, well, we'd obviously be getting more money through the, through the till. Okay, great. So it means more money. And what would more money mean? It's like, well, do you know what? I could probably bring on more staff and not have to work so much, right? Okay, not work as much. Right? What other implications do you think it might have if we were able to solve this problem? If you weren't working as much, it's like, oh, well, I could dedicate more time to my family. I might even be able to take a vacation. And so now we're highlighting the core issues in their life and relating what we do to those core issues. This is really powerful stuff. Now, we want to be able to ascertain what we can do. Well, if you were paying attention when we talked about qualifying suitability, this is a perfect time to find out if they can afford it and when they're willing to make a decision. So this is where we go to step 3 of the qualifying interest, of framing the need. We say, okay, cool. Well, look, if we were going to solve a problem like this for you, because remember, that's what sales is all about, right? If we were going to solve a problem like this for you, it would be looking at costing between about X and Y. Remember, when you're giving a number, always use ranges. Because using ranges, let's say if you're negotiating and you want more money for something, if you put the money that you want at the bottom of the range and a higher number at the top of the range, people are drastically more likely to give you exactly what you want. So I always range when giving an offer. So I say, look, something like this would look at costing you between about $20,000 and $50,000 for the year. Is that in your budget? But remember, they've told us how important this is. And it's very hard to put a price on the things that matter most to them. So this is giving you leverage to help them purchase a decision. Great. Now, when would you be looking at making a decision on something like this? So right off the bat, before I've even started my sales pitch, I've framed this need so it's one of the most important things in their life. Now I know when, and I know if they can afford it. The 2 biggest concerns I might have. Now, this is also a really good time to talk about the criteria that they fit, but generally, if your lead generators or you as a lead generator are any good, you'll have qualified this person the right way. Now, in a smaller, lower ticket kind of sale, you may not need to really create this because a lot of this may be inbuilt within your pitch, but being able to qualify a need with a customer and really make sure that their interest is now something that's centered around how important fixing this problem is going to drastically make your likelihood of sale higher. The next component of qualifying interest is finding the customer's potential concerns before you actually close them. You've only got one shot at a first close, right? Now, although we do close second and third times in objection handling, wouldn't it be more powerful if you could stop these objections before they even happened? Well, that's where a thing called pre-objection handling comes into play. Now, remember, this is a very, very expert level sales trick. It is not something you want to be teaching brand new sales staff. Why is that? Well, any experienced sales leader will know you don't want to give people an inconsistent pitch. If they have an inconsistent pitch, they're going to have inconsistent results. So you want them sticking to a very basic intro, problem, solution, close, rebuttals, rehash kind of model. That said, once you get a little bit better, if you can predict or preempt an objection before it happens, you can actually handle that objection before you close the customer, before you ask them for a credit card or tell them how much it's going to cost. Now, when you do that, when you can handle that objection ahead of time, you're essentially taking away the leg that they were trying to stand on. And we all know what happens if you don't have a leg to stand on. You will win the frame of closing, and your likelihood of closing is drastically higher. But this will actually happen before you get to your close. So this will most likely jumble up the traditional order of a pitch. So this is why we expect only expert level salespeople to be able to employ this, but it is a really powerful skill. Now, what you're looking for with a customer is you're looking for potential objections before they arise. If you're attentive and you pay very, very close attention to what the customer's saying, and you're really practicing what I call active listening, once you're doing that, you'll be able to ascertain very quickly if there's an objection about to happen. I'll give you a perfect example. Let's say you're doing something like selling cars. Now, if you're selling cars, generally customers will come with partner objections all the time. They'll come by themselves and then you'll get through all the whole pitch and they'll say, oh, I need to talk to my husband about it, or oh, I need to talk to my wife about it. Well, they're generally going to drop you a hint of that nice and early in the picture. So they'll even say something like, look, we normally make these decisions as a family, but can you tell me a bit about what you're doing? Or they're not just saying, hey, pitch me. They're saying, hey, can you pitch me, but I've already got an out, so I don't have to buy right now. Well, if you are smart enough and you log that in your brain, by the time you hit your close, you'll actually know what to say to stop that objection from happening. So for instance, you're selling a car, they'll mention something like, look, I normally make these decisions as a family, Well, before you actually ask for payment or before you actually get them to the next stage where they start filling out the paperwork, you will want to hit them with a pre-objection handle. So I'll go through all the benefits, all the solution of your sales pitch, and then go, awesome. Now, you mentioned you had a partner before. What was their name? And they'll say something like, oh, it's Maria. Okay, and what's Maria like? Obviously she can deal with you, so she can't be that bad, right? So now building a little bit of rapport, and they'll say, yeah, she's good. Okay, awesome. Now I want you to imagine that you come home, right? Because obviously she knows you're out looking for cars, right? And I want you to imagine you come home and say, look, I found the perfect car. I love it. And I really think it's going to suit what we need as a family. Now, if you mention that to her and you're in a great mood, and obviously you've seen her, do you think she's going to be really mad? Exactly, and that's why we really look empowering people to make the right decisions today. Does that make sense? Beautiful, and then you can go on into your close. So once you've handled that objection right off the bat, well, when you close them, they're not going to be able to say, oh, I need to talk to my partner about it. You've already addressed that issue. So if they are going to object with something else, it's going to be something completely different, which then keeps them on the back foot and you in charge of the interaction. So making sure that you're looking for potential red flags nice and early is a really good way to make sure that you increase your closing rate.